So you're prepping for a system design interview, right? Well, there are two words that can absolutely make or break your answer: idempotency and retries. Getting these right shows you're thinking at a senior level, but getting them wrong, that can lead to designing systems that fail in some pretty catastrophic ways. Let's break it all down. Okay, let's kick things off with a total nightmare scenario, a question that gives engineers nightmares. A customer buys something, everything looks good, but then they check their bank account and see two identical charges. How in the world did this happen? So the root of this problem is usually a really simple but really flawed flow. You've got a user's phone, it sends a payment request to the server, but then nothing. A network timeout happens. Now, from the phone's point of view, the request just failed. So what's the logical next step? It tries again, of course. And boom, that's the disaster. See, the thing is, that first request, it actually worked on the server. It was just the response that got lost on its way back. So when the client retries, it creates a second, totally separate transaction. For payments, e-commerce, pretty much any system where an action should only happen once, this is a critical, show-stopping failure. So how do we even begin to solve this? Well, the first tool in our arsenal, our first line of defense, is the retry. You have to remember, we live in a world of distributed systems where networks are just not reliable. Services can have little temporary glitches. So just reattempting a request is a fundamental strategy for building resilient systems. But there's a real art to it. It's not just about brute force. At its core, a retry mechanism is exactly what it sounds like. It's a strategy to try a failed request again. The key insight here is that we're only trying to solve temporary problems. Weathering a quick storm like a network flip, not trying to fix a permanent bug in the code. Now, there are a few ways you could do this. You could just retry immediately, or maybe wait a fixed amount of time, but both of those have a pretty serious problem, which leads us to the one strategy that interviewers are really listening for: exponential backoff. Just think about it for a second. If a server is already choking, maybe it's overloaded, and then suddenly it gets slammed by a wave of immediate retries from thousands of clients all at once, what happens? You create what's called a thundering herd problem. The retries themselves basically become a denial of service attack, and they can push that struggling system completely over the edge. And this is where exponential backoff is so brilliant. It's such a simple and effective idea. Instead of just hammering the server, you gracefully, you back off. You give the system some breathing room to recover. With each failure, the delay before your next retry grows exponentially. So let's look at how this works in practice. After the first failure, maybe the client waits 1 second. If that one fails too, it waits 2 seconds. Still no good? Okay, now it waits 4 seconds, then 8, and so on. This increasing delay is the magic sauce. It gives that struggling service the critical time it needs to get back on its feet. You want to really impress your interviewer? Mention jitter. See, if you have thousands of clients and they all start their exponential backoff at the exact same time, they're still going to retry in these big synchronized waves. Jitter adds a small, random amount of time to each delay, which spreads out the retries and stops those waves from forming. It's a huge pro tip. All right, so we've got a smart retry strategy. We're safe now, right? Well, not so fast. This brings us right back to our original double payment problem. Exponential backoff is fantastic for handling actual failures, but it does absolutely nothing to solve the problem where the request worked, but only the response got lost. And this is where we need our safety net. Retries are what make our system resilient, but idempotency is what makes our retries safe. It's the key that prevents those dangerous duplicate operations we saw at the beginning. So what is idempotency exactly? The easiest way to think about it is as a do-once guarantee. An operation is idempotent if you can send the exact same request 5, 10, even 100 times, but the actual work, like charging that credit card, only happens the very first time. Every single retry after that just gets back the original result, without causing any new side effects. And this comparison just makes it crystal clear. Without idempotency, every retry creates a new order. It's a total disaster for your inventory and for billing. But with idempotency, that first request creates the order, and any retry just looks up and returns that same original order. No duplicates, no chaos. So how do we actually pull this off? Well, the magic is something called an idempotency key. The client, your app, generates a totally unique ID for the operation. It then sticks this key into the request header. When the server gets the request, it first checks a cache or a database to see if it's ever seen that key before. If it's new, great, it processes the request and stores the result linked to that key. But if it has seen the key before, it just skips all the work and immediately returns the stored response. Okay, time to put it all together. Let's combine our smart retry strategy with our idempotency safety net and see what the complete, robust, interview-ready solution actually looks like. Here it is, the whole picture. The client sends its payment request, and it includes that unique idempotency key. Then, a timeout happens. The client kicks off its exponential backoff logic to start retrying. And this, right here, is the absolute key. Every single retry attempt includes the exact same idempotency key. The server sees that key come in again, recognizes it, and says, hey, I've already done this, and just returns the original success response. No duplicate charge, problem solved. Now, just explaining the basics is one thing, but if you really want to show that you know your stuff, you have to talk about the real-world trade-offs. Because implementing this isn't free. There are some serious challenges you have to think about.
First up, storage. I mean, where are you going to keep potentially millions of these keys? You'll need something fast and scalable, like a Redis or a DynamoDB. Second, key expiry. You can't just store these keys forever, so you need a policy. A 24-hour lifetime is pretty common, but it's a trade-off. And finally, the really tricky one, partial failures. What if the payment goes through, but your system crashes right before it can save the result for that idempotency key? That's a really tough problem. Just mentioning these challenges shows you're thinking way beyond the textbook answer.
Okay, moment of truth. The interviewer looks at you and asks, how would you make this API reliable? It's time to put everything we've talked about into a clear, confident, and killer answer. Here are the magic words, the phrases you absolutely have to use. You start by addressing the temporary failures. For reliability, I'd implement retries with exponential backoff and jitter. Then you hit the safety concern. To ensure safety, especially for write operations, I'd make the endpoint idempotent. And finally, you give them the how. This can be implemented using a client-generated idempotency key passed in a header.
And it's just as important to know what not to do. This table shows the biggest mistakes. Retrying without idempotency is the cardinal sin. It leads straight to data corruption. Using aggressive, naive retries, you can literally crash your own system. And just ignoring the problem altogether, well, that's not an option in any serious application.
So let's boil all of this down to the one thing you have to remember. Think of it like this. Retries handle temporary failures. They give you resilience. Idempotency prevents duplicate operations. It gives you safety. You absolutely need both of them working together to build truly robust systems. One without the other is a job half done.
So we'll leave you with a follow-up question, just like you'd get in a real interview. You've said you need to store these keys, but how? What kind of database would you pick? What are the trade-offs you'd have to make between speed, consistency, and cost? That's where the next level of system design really begins.